He gave his brother a kidney, no questions, no strings, just pure trust. Years later, when life fell apart, all he needed was a place to crash. Instead, he got a typed eviction notice and a betrayal that would change everything. What happened next turned a family's darkest secret into a national headline and forced one man to choose between loyalty and survival. If you think family can't betray you, think again. This is a story you'll never forget. I was 27 when I gave my brother my kidney. No hesitation. No drama. Just a straight, yeah, of course you can have it. You're my brother. He was 35, married to a woman I'd always liked, with 2 kids I considered more like my own niece and nephew than anything else. His kidney failure came out of nowhere. One week he was coaching his son's soccer team, the next he was yellow-eyed, exhausted, and hooked up to machines that beeped all night. The doctors said he needed a transplant soon. My parents were too old. His wife wasn't a match. So I got tested. When they told me I was compatible, I didn't even need to think about it. This was my big brother. The guy who used to walk me home from school when our mom worked late. The one who punched my high school bully in the gut when I came home with a black eye. He was the responsible one. The protector. I owed him everything. The surgery was hell. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt. It did. It hurt like hell. I couldn't sleep on my side for weeks. I pissed blood. I lost 20 pounds from the nausea alone. And recovery? That dragged for months. I had to pause my own life, my startup job, dating, gym, just to heal. But none of it mattered. Because he was alive. I stayed with him and his family during his recovery. Helped with the kids when he was too tired to get out of bed. Paid the hospital bills the insurance didn't cover without being asked. Cooked when his wife couldn't. Picked up prescriptions. I even helped pay the property taxes one year when things got tight. I never asked for a thank you. Never even thought about it in terms of debt. To me, family was just, you show up. No scoreboard. When he finally recovered, he called me his guardian angel in a speech at his church. I stood in the back, awkward, sweating through my collar while people came up and hugged me like I was some kind of saint. But I wasn't. I just did what anyone would do for someone they loved. Or, at least, what I thought anyone would do. Years passed. Life went on. I moved out, got my own place again. Picked up my career. We didn't talk every day, but we were close. I was uncle in all the family group texts. Birthday parties, graduations, backyard barbecues, I was always there. So when I lost my job 5 years later during a major round of tech layoffs, it didn't even cross my mind to go anywhere else. I called him and explained. I just needed a place to crash for a while. Something temporary, just until I landed back on my feet. He didn't hesitate. Of course, he said. Just until you're back up and running. So I packed up my stuff, left the sleek apartment I could no longer afford, and moved back into the guest room of the house I once helped keep afloat. I told myself it was temporary. A few months, tops. That was the plan. At first, living with my brother's family felt like returning to something warm and familiar. The kids were older now, teenagers, but they still lit up when they saw me. His wife greeted me with a hug and said, "Make yourself at home." And he? He clapped me on the back and told me, "Your family. We take care of our own." I believed him. The first couple of weeks, I treated it like a mini sabbatical. I updated my resume, applied to everything under the sun, even helped around the house, driving the kids to soccer, cooking when his wife worked late, fixing a broken bathroom light fixture that had been flickering for months. I pulled my weight. But freelance gigs were slow to come. The market was flooded with out-of-work tech workers, all of us scrambling for the same contract roles. I landed 1 or 2 short-term projects, but nothing steady. I dipped into savings. Said no to dinners out. Lived tight. Embarrassingly tight. 3 months in, I offered to contribute to groceries and utilities. My brother waved me off. Focus on getting stable, he said. We're good. I didn't want to take advantage. I was painfully aware of how long I'd been there, even if no one said anything. I tried to keep a low profile, washed my dishes right after eating, folded the laundry if I saw it piling up, even started tutoring the kids in math to save them from paying for a tutor. But then came the little comments. Subtle things, mostly from his wife. You're always here. Do you think maybe some structure would help your job search? I heard Target is hiring. Just to keep busy. My brother would smooth them over, chuckle, and change the subject. But I felt them like paper cuts. Month 5, I noticed things shift. The kids stopped hanging out in the living room when I was there. His wife started closing the door when she was cooking. I knocked once to say goodnight and heard whispering stop cold. Then, month 7, my brother started working late. A lot. Then came home silent. Tired. Disconnected. I began avoiding them. Spent most of my time in the guest room with my laptop. My savings were almost gone. I was trying hard. But it was like living in a house with walls that whispered, "You don't belong here anymore." Then, on a random Tuesday morning 8 months and 4 days after I'd moved in, I woke up and found an envelope on the floor just inside my bedroom door. No knock. No text. Typed. No handwriting. No signature. Effective immediately, you have 30 days to vacate the premises. This is no longer sustainable for our family dynamic. I read it twice. I didn't yell. I didn't march down the hall and demand an explanation. I didn't even cry. I just sat down on the edge of the bed, holding the letter like it might rewrite itself if I waited long enough. He hadn't even spoken to me. I thought about the word sustainable. Like I was some kind of carbon footprint in their home. Like I was a drain on their energy bill. Not a person. Not a brother. I folded the letter neatly. Placed it back in the envelope. And began to pack. I didn't say a word as I packed. Not to him, not to his wife, not even to the kids. Maybe that hurt more than anything, that they didn't say anything to me, either. No knock on my door. No hey, this isn't what I wanted. Just silence. Like I was a tenant whose lease had expired. Not the man who had literally bled for this family. I moved out before the 30 days were up. Found a sublet in a building that looked like it hadn't seen a maintenance crew since the 90s. The pipes screamed every time I turned on the faucet. There was mold around the windows and a soft spot on the floor that felt like a trapdoor to the apartment below. But the rent was cheap. And it was mine. I slept on a mattress on the floor. Ate instant noodles and frozen dumplings. Kept my clothes in plastic bins because I couldn't afford a dresser yet. It was like being 22 again, but without the optimism. That first night in the sublet, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I'd gotten here. I'd done everything right. I'd worked hard. Saved lives, literally. Been loyal. And still ended up discarded like last year's tech. I didn't want revenge. Not really. I just wanted someone to know. To see what had happened. I needed to get it out of me. So I started writing. It was just a blog at first. Anonymous. I didn't name him or his family. I didn't even say the city. Just the facts. The kidney. The recovery. The months of unpaid help. The move-in. The eviction. I told it all like I was narrating someone else's story, trying to make sense of it. At the end of the post, I added a line I hadn't planned to write. I didn't want money. I wanted to feel like a brother. I wanted someone to remember what I gave up. I published it around midnight. Closed the laptop and went to sleep. By morning, the post had 11 comments. By noon, 300. By the end of the day, it was on the front page of Reddit. People were furious. Outraged on my behalf. You saved his life and he threw you out? Blood doesn't mean family. This broke me. Then came the DMs. From strangers. From people who said they gave everything to family and got betrayal in return. I wasn't alone. Then came the donations. People asked if I had a GoFundMe. I didn't. So I made one. Reluctantly. I figured I'd raise a few $100 to replace the mattress or fix the plumbing. By the end of the week, it passed $18,000. Then came the interviews. Local radio. A podcast. Then a journalist from a major online news outlet messaged me. We'd love to cover your story. I hesitated. But said yes. The headline was brutal. Man evicted by brother whose life he saved. It went everywhere. That's when I got the call. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail at first, but something told me to listen. It was him. You ruined me, he said, his voice shaking. I lost my job. My wife is furious. Her parents won't speak to us. You happy now? I sat on the edge of my thrift store couch, the phone cold in my hand. I had already given him a kidney. I wasn't giving him my silence. He called again 2 days later. I didn't pick up. Then came the texts. Please call me. This has gone too far. The kids are asking questions. I stared at the screen. I thought about those kids, how I used to drive them to swim practice, how I helped build their science fair projects, how I sat in the ER all night with the younger one after he broke his wrist falling off the backyard trampoline. They weren't the ones who typed that eviction letter. But they were old enough now to understand what had happened. And apparently, they were reading the internet. I didn't respond. Then came a message from an unknown number, a lawyer. He represented my brother and his wife. They were requesting a signed statement from me clarifying that my departure from their home had been mutually agreed upon and non-coercive. They wanted to correct the public narrative. There was a file attached. A pre-written draft with blanks for my name, signature, and date. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, just looking at it. I kept thinking, they didn't ask me to stay. They asked me to rewrite history. I opened a new document. Typed out an invoice. Invoice for services rendered. Kidney donation, life-saving organ priceless. Post-op care, household support, childcare, 8 months $8,200. Rent contributions plus utilities paid during brother's recovery, 2 years $6,000. Emotional labor, pain, and public humiliation, TBD. Total, $14,200 plus rest of my damn life. At the bottom, I wrote a single line. You can't evict someone from your life and expect their loyalty to stay behind. I emailed it back. No signature. No smiley face. No pleasantries. Silence. A week passed. Then another. The lawyer didn't respond. But the public did. Screenshots of the invoice leaked. No idea how. Maybe the lawyer shared it. Maybe it was someone on his end. But it hit Twitter, then Instagram, then TikTok. People went wild. Some said I was bitter. Others called me a legend. A few tried to pick it apart, accused me of clout chasing. But the overwhelming support? That was real. More people donated. I received job offers, real ones, from companies that had read my story and liked my writing. Apparently, telling the truth in public was good for your SEO. Then I got another message from the kids. Through Instagram. A DM from my niece. Uncle, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I miss you. That one broke me. Sat me right down on the kitchen floor like a punched-out boxer. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't know what I could say that wouldn't hurt her more. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was a scar that kept opening. I started carrying that invoice around in my bag like a shield. I never planned to actually collect, but it felt good to have something tangible. A receipt of everything I gave. Everything they tried to erase. My brother never responded to it. Not directly. But I heard things. A mutual friend told me he'd been put on leave from his job. Apparently the company didn't like the attention. His in-laws, once warm and doting, had turned cold. His wife barely posted anymore. The once carefully curated image of a perfect suburban family had cracked wide open, and I'd exposed the rot underneath. I didn't feel good about it. That's the worst part. I thought revenge would bring some twisted satisfaction. That justice, or whatever version of it this was, would taste sweet. It didn't. It just felt heavy. People kept messaging me, asking for updates. Strangers followed my blog like it was a series. They sent me their own stories, people who had been disowned, betrayed, cut out of wills after caregiving their dying parents. People who gave everything and got nothing but silence in return. I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about a larger truth, that blood doesn't make you safe. Sometimes it just makes it harder to walk away. Still, the guilt crept in. Late at night, I'd stare at my phone, debating whether to call him. Just once. Just to say, you broke me. But I still don't want to see you suffer. But then I'd remember that envelope under the door. Typed. Cold. No signature. No courage. He could have had a conversation. Could have looked me in the eyes and said, I think it's time. I would have understood. I would have tried to make it easier. Instead, he made me feel disposable. So no, I didn't call. Instead, I kept writing. One post a week. Honest, sometimes ugly truths. I wrote about sacrifice. About being the good sibling and what that costs. About the myth of unconditional loyalty. I even wrote a piece called The Price of a Kidney, and it trended for days. Publishers reached out. Someone suggested a book deal. I laughed, but they were serious. You have a voice, they said. And people are listening. I started to believe them. One morning, I woke up to find an envelope slid under my door. But this time, it wasn't typed. It was handwritten, shaky, a little smudged. Just 4 words. Please talk to me. No name. But I knew the handwriting. I held the letter for a long time. My first instinct was to rip it up. Burn it. Post it online for another round of applause. But I didn't. Because deep down, under all the anger and humiliation, I still loved my brother. And that made everything harder. I carried that handwritten note in my wallet for a week. I'd find it between receipts and bus tickets, run my thumb over the words, try to imagine what I would say if I called him back. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, to finally hear him say sorry. Another part, honestly, the louder one, just wanted peace. I couldn't sleep. Every night, I'd lie awake, replaying the last conversation we had before everything blew up. He'd called me brother then, thanked me for my help, said he was proud of me for trying to rebuild after the layoff. That was before the letter, before the silence. I wrote and rewrote a response in my head, but every version sounded either too angry or too wounded. I didn't want to be either. So instead, I did what I'd always done, I wrote it out for the world to see. I posted a new entry, the most honest one yet. I told my readers about the letter, about the ache of missing someone you can't forgive, about how betrayal from family doesn't just bruise you, it redefines you. I confessed that I still loved my brother, even after everything. That I wished things had turned out differently. That I didn't want revenge anymore, just understanding. Maybe a little dignity. The post exploded. Comments poured in from people who'd been through the same thing, some forgave, some never spoke again, some spent years trapped in the middle. For the first time, I let myself read them all. I realized I wasn't alone. None of us were. The money from the blog and donations kept me afloat. I found a steady gig writing content for a company run by someone who'd been through their own messy family fallout. I bought myself a second-hand couch, finally got a real bed frame. The apartment was still a dump, but it felt a little more like home. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes, I found the hospital bracelet from my surgery. I remembered my brother's hand squeezing mine right before I went under. The raw, terrified gratitude in his eyes. I let myself cry for the first time since leaving his house. Later that night, I wrote one last letter. Not for him, but for me. You can love someone and still choose yourself. Family is a choice, not a debt. I gave you everything I could. I'm done paying. I never sent it. But I didn't need to. The next morning, I woke up lighter. And for the first time in months, I didn't check my phone for messages from him. I just breathed. And moved forward. Months passed. The story faded from the trending lists, the donations slowed, and my inbox became a little less crowded. Life, in its strange way, began to settle. I rented a better apartment, nothing fancy, but clean, with enough quiet to write and enough sunlight to remember that the world wasn't all shadow and betrayal. My brother never called again. Sometimes I'd see his name pop up in family group chats, birthday wishes for our mom, updates about the kids' sports. We didn't block each other. We just stopped. I saw the kids once, by accident, at a neighborhood cafe. My niece hugged me so hard I thought she'd break my ribs. My nephew was quieter, taller now, eyes darting between me and his phone. We talked about school, their new puppy, which one of them would take after their dad in sports. Not a word about the story. I paid for their hot chocolates and watched them leave, their faces flushed with guilt, maybe relief. I never blamed them. They were caught in the crossfire of grown-ups' wounds. Work picked up. I wrote more, sometimes about family, sometimes about anything but. A publisher reached out again. I signed a deal for a book about sacrifice, about what we owe each other and what we don't. I heard, through mutual friends, that my brother had found work again. A lower position, less pay, but steady. His marriage survived. He and his wife kept their distance from me, but that was fine. I had stopped needing apologies that would never come. Every year on the anniversary of the surgery, I lit a candle for myself. Not out of bitterness, but gratitude, for my stubborn heart, for the pain that taught me boundaries, for the voice I finally claimed. I donated a portion of the book advance to an organ donor charity. It felt right. Sometimes I still dreamed of that moment in the hospital, the warmth of my brother's hand in mine, the terror and hope mixing in our eyes. I wondered if he ever thought about it, or if he'd rewritten his own story enough times to believe his version. But I didn't chase that closure anymore. You can only save someone so many times before you realize you're the one who needs rescuing. In the end, family isn't about blood, or debt, or sacrifice. It's about choice. And this time, I chose myself.